recap a little bit. First of all, today hoshaana rabba, and hoshaana rabba, Sukkot. We read about Gog and Magog. We read about the war that will take place before the arrival of the Mashiach. And one of the things about this war, other than Israel is at the center of the war, is that the war apparently involves different nations. And it's really strange. I read a midrash a few years ago where part of the war there will be the king of Persia will go to war with the king of Arabia, and this will lead to a major battle. So let me tell you what's happening. Since we are in Hoshaana Rabbah, since we are in the night of Sukkot, we can talk about this just a little, and then we'll get to the Gemara. But I wanted to let you know there is a reasonable possibility or even probability that what I'm describing to you now will take place. And it is as follows. I would say there's a 30% chance that the following scenario develops. So we know that Israel is poised to attack Iran. Israel is poised to attack Iran, not just because Iran sent 300 missiles or whatever number of missiles between the attack back in May and then the recent attack a few weeks ago. Israel is poised to attack Iran because Iran is the head of the evil axis that wanted to basically create an octopus-type tentacles around Israel, Hezbollah to the north, Hamas to the south, the Houthis to the, southeast, and then they had in Iraq and in Syria. And basically Israel understands that Iran is responsible for October 7th. October 7th happened on Shemini Aseret, our Shemini Aseret. So I don't know when Bibi Netanyahu is going to decide to do this. But he's coming after Iran.
He's got 15 days.
He's got no choice after they bombed his house.
15 because of the elections.
Till the elections.
And after they bombed his house, I think he. I have no doubt that they saw it coming and they're just using this as a pretext. The fact that the drone reached the house means
they let it.
He intends to attack Iran very vigorously. Otherwise, that drone would not have reached the house. There were 3 drones that came. The only one that made it from the 3 drones, and they were following it with Israeli anti-drone technology. The only one that made it was the one that reached Bibi Netanyahu's bedroom window. So I don't think that was an accident. So what's going to happen is as follows, and here's the scenario. Israel is going to attack Iran. They'll probably want to hurt Iran really bad. I think Israel wants a regime change in Iran. They want to bring down the Ayatollahs and bring back the Shah of Iran. The Shah of Iran was very pro-Jewish, pro-state of Israel, and they want to destroy the Ayatollahs. And I think in order to do so, they have to attack the oil refineries in Iran. All the oil in Iran is located in one island. Meaning, no, that's not true. All the oil goes to this one island where the oil refineries are. So they just have to, for Israel to bomb that one island is like, it's not much of an issue. It's like me doing, I don't know, just run around the corner, and that's it. It's not challenging. So I believe that's going to happen. Here's where, I'm sorry.
If they do that, what happens to the people that benefit from the oil?
Right. So there's going to be a few things. First of all, the Iranian oil, they produce about 1 million barrels a day. The main benefactor of that oil is China. So China will get hurt. And I think this is another reason that Israel wants to do this, because China is part of the axis of evil that's against Israel. So China and Iran and North Korea, they're part of this axis of evil. As well. So what's going to happen if Israel... What?
Russia has its own oil.
Russia doesn't need the oil. It's China that needs oil. Exactly. China is the benefactor of that oil. They buy the oil. What's going to happen if Israel attacks Iran and they put the oil offline, and this is something that's already been spoken about, but never seriously, but now it's being spoken about seriously in the geopolitical circles, is that if Iran loses their oil refineries, they're going to come after Saudi Arabia. Now, if Iran comes after Saudi Arabia, first of all, that would be analogous to what the Midrash says, that Persia and Arabia will be at war, right? Because that's actually what seems to be setting up right now. I'm not predicting this. I'm just saying there's a 30% likely that this will happen. It all depends on A, whether Israel attacks the oil refineries. I think they will, and B, whether Iran, in a desperate attempt to stay in power, the Ayatollahs, they decide to attack Saudi Arabia, go to war in Saudi Arabia. This is something they've been wanting to do for a while. Iran hates Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, they're Sunnis. Iran, they're Shiites. They hate each other's guts. If that happens and Saudi Arabian oil goes offline, two things will happen. Number one, I'm not talking about even the potential for, regional war or World War III, which is clearly what we're looking at. But the price of oil the price of oil, barrel of oil, will probably spike to about $300. If you want the price of oil to spike to $300 a barrel, then the scenario that I just described should be the scenario that you look forward to. However, and this is the good news. The good news is that America has its own oil, and if Donald Trump wins, he's probably going to
drill, baby, drill.
Not just drill, baby, drill. Right now, America exports much of its oil to Europe and other places. They're going to stop exporting the oil. So the price of oil in this country will be pretty stable. If anything, there will be a surplus of oil because of this war. The only exception to that is California. California, I think, is one state of the union where they don't have a pipeline to allow oil to come from Ohio, Texas, and North Dakota. Every place else has it, but they're like green. They're into green energy, so they're not going to have, and the price of oil there will probably spike because they get oil from the Persian Gulf. But the rest of the country doesn't get oil from the Persian Gulf. So we're looking at a potential war, which is the war described in the Midrash as part of Gog and Magog. I'm putting it out there, not because I'm trying to make a prediction, but it's kind of weird, like when you think about the way things are developing and what the next steps are going to be. I know for sure, and I can already tell you, that Saudi Arabia is scared to death of Iran, and they're working with Israel to try to defend Saudi Arabia against Iran. That's already happening. That's there. Just so you know.
I mean, only because it's the Times of Israel, which is reliable. I mean, they talk about it's strange, and it's probably just for show. And they're doing joint drills. Iran and, or they want to, or they're about to, with Saudi Arabia.
Iran and Saudi Arabia are not doing joint drills. They hate each other's guts.
That's what I thought. Always. Iran says it's planning to hold first joint military drills with Saudis in Red Sea.
Right.
Riyadh has not confirmed it yet. Will join the exercise. So
right. They're not. The Saudi Arabia will literally be committing suicide if that happened, because they would lose the American protection. They would lose the Israeli protection. That's not going to happen. That's a mistaken report. The more correct report is that Saudi Arabia is working with Israel on the secret, and this is a fact. What I'm saying is a fact, to protect Saudi Arabia against Iran. So I'm not sure who wrote that article and what they meant by it. And you're right, Times of Israel is usually reliable. In this case, they're just off the marker. But that's where we are. We're hoshaana rabba. We're close to the anniversary of October 7th. Shemini Aseret, and we're all waiting to see what happens in Israel. But whatever happens next is going to be pretty dramatic. That much I can tell you. So now let's get to the Gemara we're studying, and I want to give you the background so I can plug you back into this. So any questions about hoshaana rabba? People wanted to know what hoshaana rabba is. Hoshaana rabba literally means great salvation, because there will be a great war, Gog and Magog, around this time of the year, and hoshaana rabba is when Hashem will save Am Yisrael, or we pray to Hashem that He save us. That's what literally hoshaana rabba means, right? The great redemption, or the great salvation of God. All right.
It just happens to line up with the end of Sukkot.
Yeah, that's why we read Gog and Magog on Sukkot. We read this, the wars of Gog and Magog. We read about those wars on Sukkot, because they're going to somehow, dramatic things are going to happen around this holiday. Yes. Go ahead.
I had the same question.
What?
Gog and Magog is going to happen around this time, or at least
First of all, Gog and Magog might be a longer war. It might be, according to the Gaon of Vilna, the whole war will last a few minutes. Understand that as you want to understand that. But the point is, something dramatic things are going to happen on Sukkot. And we know that last year on Sukkot, there was October 7th. Shemini Aseret happened actually the day after Hoshaana Rabbah, was literally when this happened, right? So we know that this is a time of year where things related to Gog and Magog take place, and the next step of the Gog and Magog war may be about to take place soon, if Israel, and they will, attack Iran. The question is where, when, and how.
Are they negotiating now with with Hamas, or they have no one to talk to?
And there's no one to, I mean, they're not negotiating. You know, the only thing Hamas can do is surrender, and they're not surrendering. So Israel has to kill them one by one. There's nothing else Israel can do other than just kill the terrorists one by one, right? And it's a long, painful process, but they have to do it.
So when it's like they have to kill the Mashiach before, who's the?
I don't know. There's Mashiach ben Yosef. He's the one who gets killed, and then there's Mashiach ben David. I have my theories. I'm going to keep them to myself for now. But that's where we're at. We're in a very interesting point in human history. We're in a human history, Jewish history, human history. It's all related. We're definitely in an inflection point. I want to tell you now. Okay.
I have
So
one more question
yes,
about
please.
hoshaana rabba.
Yes.
They say it's the final day of judgment,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
how does that coincide to what you were just talking about, how it's, salvation and all of that?
Yeah. So the question being, how bad will Gog Magog be? Who's gonna get saved from Gog Magog? What's gonna be right? How do we as a nation come out of it? What's gonna be the cost of the war? So hoshaana rabba, that's in that case it's more at the national level than at the individual level. That's the way I understand it personally. Although the Kabbalistic approach is a little different, they say that there is an exterior seal that's put on the envelope, so to speak, on hoshaana rabba, the final seal of the envelope. Fair enough. I view it more as a final seal of the envelope for what happens to Am Yisrael, and that's how it's connected with Gog and Magog. It's a national type of judgment, and we know what happened last year, and inshallah this year will be much better, and it'll be great what happens this year. Yes, sir.
What time did Sodom and happen? Was it also around?
Oh, I don't know. That's an interesting question. Well, that's a very
Because
interesting.
that's
I don't
what's
know.
happening now also.
I don't know. I don't have the answer to that.
If you think about it, it's happening now also.
We know that the war with the three kings happened in the year 2023. That we know. I said three kings. I meant to say the war with the four kings against the five kings happened in the year 2023 to the Hebrew calendar, which is now right. So that much we know. But when did Sodom v'Amorah, destruction of Sodom v'Amorah, not the war of
Because,
Sodom v'Amorah?
if you look around, that's what's happening now. With the Puff Daddy, with all his nonsense.
Yeah.
Now you have the guy from Abercrombie and Fitch, also another one.
Elohim Yishmor.
It's not normal. What's going on?
It's crazy. It's
It's insane. If it happened around this time, let's.
Elohim Yishmor. All right, God help us. All right, but hopefully, like I said, hopefully the judgment will be a good judgment, and the war will be a positive war. Hopefully, we suffer the worst things that we had to suffer. Let's talk now. Go back in time to the days of the temple of King Solomon. We have the seventh descendant from King Solomon. When I say seventh generation from King Solomon, there was a child called Yehoash. And I told you previously that his grandmother was a lady called Atalia. She was a little crazy. She was the daughter of Izebel. Izebel was a Phoenician woman who was obsessed with Avodah Zarah. And Atalia was the queen, and she decided to kill all the descendants of King David. We studied about that. You remember? We studied about how all the descendants of King David were killed, except for one child, baby called Yehoash. He was taken by the Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol was a person called Yehoyada HaKohen. He hid him in the Bet HaMikdash. Apparently in the Kodesh HaKodashim, although there's different speculation, some say no, it wasn't the Kodesh HaKodashim, doesn't matter. He was hidden in the Bet HaMikdash at the age of 7. He comes out of the Kodesh HaKodashim. People realize that there is a descendant of King David still alive, and they do a coup against Atalia. Atalia was a queen, and they kill her. The mob kills her, and Yehoash becomes the king. Till now, you all knew the story. We said this before. What happens next? What happens next is important, because without this, you will not understand the Gemara that we are now reading. What happens next is Yehoash is raised by the Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol was his, maybe not his physical father, but he was his spiritual father and his teacher. And he is raised by the Kohen Gadol. He's king for 40 years. And as long as the Kohen Gadol is alive, Yehoash was a very good king. He was a Sadiq. The Kohen Gadol dies, and back then there was in vogue a certain type of Avodah Zarah. And the ministers of Judea, they come to the king. Now remember, the Kohen Gadol is already dead. They come to the king and they tell him, look, we want to do Avodah Zarah. We want you to give us permission to do Avodah Zarah, just like all the nations around us. It's ridiculous. This is hurting our international relationship. We're being viewed as fanatics. So what happened? He agrees. Now, the son of the Kohen Gadol was a person called Zechariah. Zechariah was the son of Yehoiada. Now, Yehoiada was killed already. I mean, not killed, I'm sorry. He died. He wasn't killed, he died. His son Zechariah was not just a Kohen, he was a Navi. He was a prophet. And there's a pasuk in Echa. And let me see if I can find the pasuk in Echa, and I'll read it for you.
This is Navi Zechariah.
No. This is a different person. This person, Zechariah ben Yehoiada HaKohen, was way before Zechariah HaNavi that you know about. This is a different Zechariah. There's a pasuk that speaks about as follows. Im tochalna nashim piriyam olele tipuchim. This pasuk is actually from the book of Echa. And the pasuk says something very shocking. It says, can there ever be a situation where a woman would eat her own children out of starvation? So the answer was, Im yehareg b'mikdash Adonai Kohen benavi. Yes, if the following happens. If you have a situation where in the Bet HaMikdash there will be a murder of a person who is both a Kohen and a Navi. That's the answer. Meaning, when you see that a person who was a Kohen and a Navi is killed in the Bet HaMikdash, take that as a warning that horrible starvation is going to fall upon the land. That's the pasuk in Megillat Echa, okay? Now, what happened? This person, Zechariah, was a Kohen and he was a Navi. And he saw that they're going towards Avodah Zarah. And he decided to make a point of it. It's the day of Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, he's in the Bet HaMikdash, and he stands up in the Bet HaMikdash, and he begins to speak to the people and tell them, you're doing Avodah Zarah. There's going to be serious consequences for this Avodah Zarah. It's the worst Averah in the Torah, right? And he says as follows. Lama atem overim mit mitzvot Adonai velo taslichu. You are violating the mitzvot of God, and you will fail. Ki azavtem et Adonai ve'yazov etchem. The reason you will fail is you left God, and God is going to leave you. So this is what he says. So again, it's Yom Kippur, holiest day in the Jewish calendar. He's in the Bet HaMikdash, holiest place in the Jewish, in the world, not just in Israel, in the world. And when they hear this, they go to the king and they tell the king, listen, you gave us permission to do Avodah Zarah. This guy is standing up in the Bet HaMikdash and he's preaching against Avodah Zarah. He's insulting you. And the king kind of gives him a wink to go kill him. So on Yom Kippur, they kill this person who was both a Kohen and a Navi. Right? So that's the pasuk says, I'm going to read to you pasuk, Vayisheru alav, the mob surround Zechariah, Vayirgemuhu even, they stone him to death.
Did they do it right at the spot where we do when we scream it out?
No, I don't know. I don't know when they did it, but it was horrible. The Misvat HaMelech, and they were following the instruction of the king, B'chasar Bet Adonai, in the Bet HaMikdash, no less. Now this is complete perfidy, because who saved Yoash's life? His father. Yehoiada, the father of this Kohen, he's the reason that Yehoash was alive. Atalia wanted to kill him, remember? So, perfidy. I mean, truly, true perfidy. Right? ויהרוג את בנו, וכמותו אמר ירא אדוני וידרוש. And before he died, he uttered the following words, meaning as Zechariah was about to die, he says, God will see what you are doing, and he will call upon my blood, meaning he will avenge my blood. That's what he said. Okay. So, apparently, nothing happened. Later on, Yehoash, when he was 47 years old, he got killed. The war broke out, he got killed. Okay, some people thought that was it. That was the punishment. Yoash got killed. That was it. Wasn't the punishment. How does Yoash getting killed a punishment for this perfidious act that you kill a Navi and the Kohen in the Bet HaMikdash on Yom Kippur when his father saved your life? Okay, so now we're going to see where it says Yereh Adonai ve'idrosh. God is going to avenge this blood. We're going to read now what happened, how God avenged this blood. So this is the Gemara that we're studying today, and it is as follows. I lost.
Are you aware of the pasuk that was said as far as on the day that a Kohen and Navi gets killed?
That pasuk was said by Yirmiyah Navi decades later.
Later, so not before.
Exactly, but meaning later on, Yirmiyah Navi was remembering what happened, and he's saying, and this is why. Okay, so give me a moment. I want to find the place here. 96b. I'm going to open up the Gemara, and we will begin reading. Okay. So we read how Nebuzaradan was the general that came from Babylonia to destroy the Bet HaMikdash. Right? Nebuchadnezzar sends Nebuzaradan to Jerusalem. He goes to Jerusalem, and he's the one who destroys Jerusalem. He burns the city, and he enters the Bet HaMikdash. And now, what word are we on? Chazah. Thank you. Chazah dameh de Zechariah dehava karatachiso on the floor. Now there's a question. Where was this person murdered? Because the Bet HaMikdash has three levels. Like the external part of the Bet HaMikdash is the Azarat Nashim, which is the least holy. It's holy. You can't go in unless you pray. But then there's the Azarat Yisrael, which is holier. And then there's the Azarat Kohanim, where only the Kohanim are allowed to enter. He was killed in Azarat Kohanim. And Nebuzaradan gets to Azarat Kohanim, and he sees a blood stain on the floor. It was the blood of Zechariah. And the legend brought by the Gemara is that the blood was still boiling. I think what that means is that at that point Nebuzaradan understood that there's something about that blood. Amalehu, my eye. So he told the people, what is this blood here? It's boiling. Amruleh, dam zevachimu deishtapich. They said, listen, we bring korbanot here. We bring different korbanot, and you're seeing the blood. This is the blood of the korbanot. Amalehu, aite ve'anse imedamu kaseh vela idmu. He said, listen, I'm going to do something. Bring me the korban you usually bring. Let's do the shachita on the korban. I want to compare. Does it look the same? Is it similar or not similar? So they bring. Vela idmu. And it wasn't similar.
Red-handed, no pun intended.
All right. Amalehu galuli. He says, okay, I don't have time for these games. You better tell me right now what this blood is about. Ve'ilah sarikna lechu lebesaraichu bemisreka defarzela. If you don't do this, I'm going to literally comb your skin off with metal combs. That was a particularly painful type of death. That's how Rabbi Akiva, by the way, died. When the Romans killed Rabbi Akiva, they killed him in that way. By the way, also the Spanish Inquisition, when the Catholics in the Spanish Inquisition, they didn't kill people. They employed very sadistic method. So this is a particularly sadistic method, a particularly painful method. Even the ISIS didn't do this. He says, if you don't tell me, I'm going to comb off your skin or flesh with these metal combs. Amruleh, hi, Kohen ben Avihu. This blood that you're looking at is the blood of a Kohen, a person who was not just a Kohen, he was a Navi. De'imbe lehu le'Yisrael b'chulbana Yerushalem. And this person had a prophecy, and in his prophecy he saw that Jerusalem one day will be destroyed, v'katluhu, And when we heard this person speaking ill about us, we killed him. That's a story, and that's a real story. So now Nebuzaradan understands what happened, and he understands that the blood is still boiling. Now let me explain it to you. From the perspective, when a person is victimized by a crime, it's very rare to find a person who is victimized by a crime and takes left-wing lenient positions towards criminals. Meaning, once a person himself has been victimized by a crime, he becomes a hardcore Republican or conservative, or whatever you want to call him. So now, this person, his blood is still boiling because he can't forgive the fact that he was murdered. He was murdered by the people whose lives or whose life he saved. He can't get over it. You know, he's an olam haba. And I was like, come on, like, what he can't get over it. So that's the blood, it's still boiling. Now, Nebuzaradan was a very intelligent person. He understands, well, if the blood is boiling and the guy feels victimized, and rightly so, well, here's my opportunity. God sent me here to conquer this city, and I'm going to do justice. He wants to do the right thing. So I want to do the right thing. I want to stop the blood from boiling. So what happened? He says, Amalehu ana mefaisana le. I am going to make this blood stop boiling, meaning I'm going to assuage the neshama of this person so he no longer feels, what did you do to me? Right?
Yeah, so you're saying like, was that doing L'Shem Shamayim when he destroyed the city?
I don't know if he did it L'Shem Shamayim or not, but oftentimes even evil people think that they're doing something good.
Right.
Now in this particular case, he understands that this person was killed, and yeah, he's saying, I'm now going to kill everybody. I'm going to kill everybody. Well, we'll see where, I don't want to jump the thing before we get to that, but yeah, that's a psychology, right? Katil ilaveh. So he took the Hachamim, probably the Sanhedrin, and he kills them right there. Velanach, and the blood was still boiling. Katil ilaveh velanach. He took the young people, young children, school children, literally, and he killed them on the same spot, and the blood was still boiling. Katil ilaveh. Then he took young Kohanim. Pirchei Kehuna literally means flowers of the Kohanim, meaning young Kohanim children who are learning the rules of the Kehuna. Katil ilaveh, and he kills them. Velanach, and the blood was still boiling. And by the way, again, you know, I want to say the psychology makes a lot of sense. You know, not to be repetitious about what I said, if a person is victimized by a criminal, but like the Torah says that if, let's say, a relative of an individual gets killed by somebody, even by accident, the Torah gives the right for the relative to pursue the negligent murderer. Why? Because that's human psychology. Can't take it. You know, you can't take it. You can't, like, you know, you go crazy. Now, whether it's right or wrong, it doesn't matter, but that's human psychology, right? So that's what's happening here. He can't get over it. You killed me, I saved your life, and I'm there to tell you not to do Avodah Zarah on Yom Kippur, and instead of saying thank you, you kill him. He can't get over it. So he's not getting over it. All right, so he's a little nuts. I mean, I get it. He's a little nuts. His spirit is a little nut, but that's just the reality of human nature. And the day is going on, and he reaches the number 940,000. That's the number he reaches. 940,000, and still, it's not stopping. 900.
One person?
900.
One person killed 940,000.
Meaning he has his soldiers.
Right.
Well, the number of people who were killed really in that day, Jerusalem probably was, you know, something in that area. I mean, this war was a brutal war where, yeah, it was, you know, unfortunately. I want to check something. Can somebody get me the book of Tehillim a book of Tehillim. Yeah. This is a pretty, it's a pretty brutal story.
You know what's interesting, Rabbi?
Yes.
The way you're describing it, I don't know if there's another instance of this, but it's like the soul has human attributes.
Yeah.
Like human emotional attributes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. That's why, like,
Which
you know,
would think
maybe.
disconnected at some point, right?
Yeah, and apparently he couldn't find rest. It just was too painful. By the way, it happens when a person is very good. Unfortunately, sometimes when people are too good and they're too innocent and they're hurt by somebody, they can go crazy. Like it happened. I've seen like situations where people who had very good neshamot and they couldn't deal with the, you know, stuff, and you know, sometimes people go crazy. It's sad, but it's true. So you know, this is a neshama of a person. He's a kohen. His father was a kohen gadol. He's a navi, and he couldn't deal with it. It was too much for him. So even though he's dead, but he's a olam haba, but he's going through some sort of hell, even in olam haba. Eventually, it stops. This is where the hell stops. But 940,000. That's a big number, you know, people, right? So.
I just want to think, you know, out of nature. So it was out of, you know, trying to think, is Hashem involved with this piece of the boiling? If it actually did happen, and
we know that Nebuzaradan experienced something analogous to boiling blood. Was it boiling blood, or was it some sort of sense that he had? But like sometimes these charismatic leaders, these politicians, these political leaders, or military leaders, they have some sort of extrasensory perception that normal people don't have. I've seen that in you know, you see that also among goyim. Like some people just have a knack for connecting or for understanding. Some people have that extra dimension.
he sees something.
He sees the blood boiling. He immediately understands. But you
I like that.
you might have met people like that in business who, you know, thank you so much. You might have met people like that in business who they catch things really fast. Like they have an antenna and they immediately detect things, right? I have somebody that I know, a friend of mine from the Torah, was very like that. He immediately understands what's happening. Now, the reason I wanted to bring to you this thing is 940,000. You know what Mizmor 94 is? El nekamot Adonai, el nekamot Ofia. The God of vengeance.
That's
The
also
God of
Yom
vengeance
Revi'i,
revealed
right?
what?
That's also Yom Revi'i, right?
Yes. El nekamot Adonai, el nekamot Ofia. So this vengeance, to answer your question, I think that was a question you were getting to. This is actually God taking vengeance against them for what they did. Right? So, yeah. Right? And again, is it justified? Did these people who are now being killed, are they the ones who killed them? No. But for some reason, when somebody is hurt and deeply hurt, God takes vengeance for that person, right? And that's what happened here. Okay? All right, so let's continue. So you see the number 940,000, 1,900. It says 94 times 10,000, 194. That's El Nekamot. You understand? All right. Karav legabeh. But I would say the same thing even with October 7th. Chazat, Elohim Yishmor. What happened to those people? You can't even imagine it. You know? But like, who knows? You know, like when in 2005, you know, there was people who were torn from their houses. Who knows what suffering they felt? And maybe it was God's way of, I'm not a spokesperson for God. I don't want to even pretend or come close to that, you know, pretending that. But maybe there was something there. Maybe the pain of these people was never fully healed, and somehow that's related. I don't know. But I'm giving you that as an example to illustrate this principle. Okay. Karav legabeh. So now, Nebuzaradan feels a little bad himself that he killed so many people, and he's realizing that this is getting a little out of hand. Amar, Zechariah. He starts calling out to Zechariah, who's dead, obviously, but it's his blood. Tovim shemem mibatim. He says, listen, I killed all the pious, I killed all the people of the Sanhedrin, I killed all the Hachamim, I killed the Pirkei Kehuna. Nihalach talinu lekulu. Do you want me to kill everybody else? Because I see your blood is still boiling. So I'm kind of getting the idea that you just want me to keep killing. Is that what you want? Nah. It stopped. Meaning, the fact that somebody addressed Zechariah and said, "What do you want? This is for you. Tell me if I should stop." That was enough. Just giving him that attention, that was enough. And he says, "Okay, stop." But you see human psychology? Sometimes you have to give the person, you have to give the individual, the hurt individual, you have to let them know, I know you're suffering. I know you're suffering, and I hear you. Just saying that can heal the person. Right? So it's like, yeah, okay. That's it. He needed to hear that. Now, Nebuzaradan, he was like, this is crazy. I've never seen anything like this. He begins to make teshuvah in his own mind. Amar, and he says as follows: Mahem shelo ibedu ela nefesh achat kach. Now, I'm looking at the Jewish people. They killed one individual. They murdered him, and look what happened because they murdered a single Jew. Generations later, I'm here. The blood is boiling, and 940,000 people were killed against that one Jew that was killed. He started thinking about himself. He says, what's going to happen to me? Look at all the people I killed in war. I killed a lot of people. Arak. He deserted the army. He realized, like, Nebuchadnezzar would never let him, he didn't want to do this anymore. So he left. Shadar purteka lebetev itgayir. He sent a letter to his wife, to his children, whatever, last will, give my house to this, give my business to this person, he sent his last will to his house, Beit Gayir, and he became Jewish. He converted to Judaism. So this person, Nebuzaradan, who was the person, the general, the Babylonian general that actually physically destroyed the Beit HaMikdash and massacred so many people, when he saw what happened, he actually converted and became Jewish. It's just crazy. And there's actually a Gemara that says, it says, "Mibnei banav shel Haman limedu Torah b'bnei Berak." From the descendants of the descendants of the descendants of Haman, they joined the Tanaim in the days of the Mishnah, and they were studying Torah, teaching Torah in Bnei Berak, which is where the Tanaim were. So, what does this mean? So, what it means is that there is such a power to the Torah. Let me put this let me go a step back. There's a short game and there's a long game. The short game is stuff like October 7th happens and people get killed and massacred, and it's beyond words what we experience. But the long game is that the Jewish people, because we have Torah, it's difficult not to get affected by the Torah. In the case of Haman, he wanted to kill every single Jew. He was a rabid anti-Semite, a lunatic. And yet, the power of the Jewish people through the Torah is so great that his great-great-grandchildren ended up converting. Not his children didn't convert. Not his grandchildren didn't convert. But if you go forward about 200-300 years, they converted. That's the power of Am Yisrael. That's the light we bring to the world. The light we bring to the world is so immense that even the worst hater, okay, he's a hater, and his children are haters, his grandchildren are hater. But eventually there'll come a generation saying, you know what are we, crazy? No, the Jews are right. We're going to join them. And they convert, and they become Jewish. I think there's an NBA basketball player, I don't know which team he's on. What's his name? He lives in Israel, right?
He lives here
now.
now.
Patrick Beverly?
He was living in Israel, but he lives here now.
Oh yeah? Okay. And he fasted and he says
Patrick
that,
Beverly.
oh, Patrick. Well, okay. So he lives in Tel Aviv. He says, I love the Jewish people. They have the best food. They're the nicest people. He loves being in Tel Aviv. So he says this year he fasted in Yom Kippur. He's not Jewish. Why would you fast? I fast because I want kaparat avonot. I mean, God tells me to fast, I fast. If God didn't tell me to fast, I'm not going to fast.
Because
You
it's
fasted.
connected.
Like, why? Why would you do that?
It's connected.
Yeah. It's hard not to get connected.
Oh, yeah,
When-
the son of the founder of Hamas is the biggest outspoken guy against Hamas.
That's a great example. I love that example. Thank you. Right, the son of Hamas. The son of Hamas, like, look, guys, I'm sorry. Let's be real here. So the sons, the descendants of Haman, many Germans say they're very pro-Jewish. So you see what's happening in the world, and in the short game, many times we lose. I admit it, many times we lose, but in the long game, I think it was Elon Musk who just sent that biggest rocket, I think, into outer space, and then he caught the payload, and he said he's going to give the technology from all the countries in the world. He wants to give it to Israel. He said, I'm giving it to Israel because they're at the forefront of protecting Western civilization. Elon Musk, his name is not Elon because he's Jewish. Okay, let's start with that. He's not a Jew. Okay? The guy is like the greatest inventor, I mean, certainly of the last century, if not maybe one of the greatest inventors in human history. What the guy's doing is like, I don't know how anybody could do what he does. I mean, he has so many different companies, not just inventions, but he's running so many companies, from a robot company where he's going to be selling robots. Apparently they're going to be on the market soon. Man, I can't wait for that. That's going to be great. To the underground trains that go through these tunnels with some hypersonic, I don't know what, to the rocket ship, to the Starlink, internet. Like, when you go internet, I was just in Vermont, no 3G. It's so frustrating. Starlink is going to have internet in outer space. This is crazy stuff. What? And forget about all the electric stuff, whatever, electric vehicles, So he says, I want to give the technology to Israel. What? Yeah. They're the ones, they're defending humanity. He's right, by the way. But it's like crazy stuff. So we see, so I think what we see from the story is that, Nebuzaradan converted, and he became Jewish, and he abandoned the army, abandoned everything, and wherever he went, he went. Okay? All right. Yeah.
Do you think he made teshuvah and was ultimately forgiven after what he did? Like, can you come back from that?
Yeah. The Gemara brings the story, and maybe we'll end with the story of Rabbi Hanania ben Teradion, and this was during the Roman persecutions of Jews. This is in the second temple. Now, what we just read was the destruction of the first temple, but what I'm telling you now is in the days of the second temple, when the second temple was destroyed, and the Romans came in and they made a law prohibiting people from studying Torah in public. So Rabbi Hanania ben Teradion taught Torah in public, and eventually they caught him, and there was a Roman executioner. Now, to get the job of Roman executioner, I'm presuming you had to have a pretty gory resume. Like, just think about what the resume of this guy is. Like, it wasn't serving fries at McDonald's. It was other things, right? We know, like, Kamala Harris has it on her resume now. Trump has it on his resume, right? So this guy's resume was not a good one. And he takes Rabbi Hanania ben Teradion and he wraps him in a Sefer Torah, and he decides to burn Rabbi Hanania ben Teradion together with the scroll of the Torah. So that's the way he's going to be killed. And as he's burning him, he says, "Tell me, your Sefer Torah is burning. Like, what do you see? Like, what do you think? What are you seeing now?" So he says, "I'll tell you what I see. I see that you're burning the Sefer Torah. But what you don't understand is you're burning the parchment, but the letters are flying up. And when my neshama goes up, my neshama is going to join those letters. You can burn my body, you can't burn my neshama. You can burn the scroll of the Torah, you can't burn the letters of the Torah. We're both eternal." Now the guy heard this, and he realized, wow, it's unbelievable. This is unbelievable. So he tells him, "Listen, if I join you now, will I get Olam Haba?" He says, "If you join me now, you get Olam Haba, but you have to make the fire. I want you to take away the what they used to do is they used to put around the person that they're burning, like, wet cloth to make the fire last longer. He says, take away the wet cloth from me, and when I go straight to Olam Haba, I'm going to take you with me. He takes away the wet cloth, he jumps into the fire, and they both die on the spot. And that was that. And the Gemara says that for having done that, yesh koneh olamo berega achat, b'sha'ah achat. There's a person who can get his Olam Haba just one moment of illumination, and he decides to act upon that moment of illumination, and he gets Olam Haba. So did that happen with Nebuzar Adam? Apparently so. At a moment of illumination, he suddenly experienced there's a God in the world, the God of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. He became scared. He made teshuvah, and that was that. So that's a story. I know there's a game. I don't want to go longer. There's still Knicks and Celtics. Yeah.
Bad game, yeah, it's over.
Wet cloth. Isn't that hasten? I mean,
Yeah, no, it hastens, but it makes it less painful. He's going to die anyway. The question is, how much pain? That's allowed. 100%.
we don't say that you never know if you can have salvation. Even in the last minute, don't hasten.
Right. He was suffering. He said, I want to stop suffering. Right? And it's the suffering. But they say, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, they could take the fire. They couldn't take being tortured. There's actually a Gemara that says in Masechet Ketuvot, Daf Lamed Gimel, it says, Ilmale nagduhu leHananiah, Mishael, Azariah. If they would have tortured them instead of burn them in the fire, they might have ended up bowing down before the idol. Torture is something nobody can take. Deaf people can take. Torture is something else. He's saying, I don't want to be tortured anymore. Take away the wife because that's torture. And then immediately the fire burnt him. That was it. Boom. Gentlemen, it's also...
doesn't have to do tshuva, right? Because once you convert, then you're completely...
That's it. Boom.
Was converted the act of tshuva?
I mean, both. First it was the moment of illumination, but then the conversion is acting upon that illumination. Gentlemen of hoshaana rabba, we should get the great salvation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in Israel's war against its enemies, and we should see Israel flourish, the enemies of Israel go down, and humanity shall flourish together with Am Yisrael. Tizku leshanim rabot.